The crystal towers of Nexus Prime stretched toward the stars like frozen lightning. Inside the largest spire, the Galactic Confederation's Council of Elders sat in their floating chairs around a massive holographic display. The room hummed with the quiet power of 1,000 civilizations united under one banner. Ambassador Zethkar of the Vorac Empire stood at the center of the chamber. His tall, insect-like body gleamed with metallic implants that enhanced his natural psychic abilities. Forearms gestured gracefully as he spoke, his mandibles clicking with confidence. "Honored elders," Zethkar began, his voice carrying through the translation matrix that allowed all species to understand each other. "The Vorac Empire requests permission to expand our territory into the outer spiral arm. Our surveys show 17 uninhabited systems suitable for colonization." The holographic display shifted to show a map of the galaxy. A red zone appeared in one of the spiral arms, far from the civilized core worlds. Most of the elders nodded their approval. The outer regions were considered worthless backwater areas. But one voice spoke up from the shadows at the edge of the chamber. "That region is not uninhabited." All heads turned toward the speaker. Keeper Yilthes emerged from the darkness, his ancient form moving slowly on 6 legs. His species, the Watchers, were among the oldest in the galaxy. They had been observing and recording for over 50,000 years. Zethkar's mandibles clicked in what passed for amusement among his kind. "Keeper Yilthes, our scans show only primitive life forms. Nothing that qualifies as a true civilization under Confederation law." The old Watcher's eyes, all 12 of them, focused on the Vorac ambassador. "There is a world in that region. 3rd planet from a yellow star. The natives call it Earth, and they call themselves humans." "Humans?" Zethkar laughed, a sound like metal scraping stone. "We detected them during our initial surveys. Bipedal mammals who have barely learned to leave their atmosphere. They still burn fossil fuels and fight with chemical explosives. What threat could such primitives pose to the mighty Vorac Empire?" Yilthes moved closer to the holographic display. With a gesture, he zoomed in on a small blue-green world orbiting a modest yellow star. "This world has produced something unique in all my years of observation. These humans are not like other species." The Keeper's voice grew serious. "Most civilizations develop in predictable patterns. They begin with cooperation, build societies, and eventually reach for the stars when they have achieved peace. But humans are different. They are born from violence." Images began appearing in the hologram. Cities in flames, armies clashing across vast battlefields, mushroom clouds rising over devastated landscapes. The assembled elders watched in shocked silence. "Their world has tried to kill them countless times," Yilthes continued. "Ice ages that should have wiped them out. Plagues that killed half their population. Volcanic eruptions that blocked out their sun for years. Each time they survived. Each time they grew stronger." Zethkar waved one of his arms dismissively. "So they are hardy survivors. This changes nothing. Our psychic abilities and advanced technology make us superior to any primitive species." But Yilthes was not finished. "They do not just survive, Ambassador. They thrive on conflict. When faced with extinction, they do not despair. They become more creative, more determined, more dangerous. I have watched them fight wars that lasted decades. I have seen them sacrifice everything for ideas they believe in." The hologram shifted to show more recent images. Humans in primitive spacesuits working on crude space stations. Chemical rockets launching from Earth's surface. Radio signals beaming into space. "They are reaching toward the stars now," Yilthes said. "But they bring their nature with them. They have turned their own moon into a weapon testing ground. They have plans to militarize every piece of rock in their solar system." Elder Vrixnal of the peaceful Centauran Republic spoke up. "Surely you exaggerate, Keeper. No species could be so warlike and still achieve spaceflight." Yilthes turned all 12 eyes toward her. "They achieved spaceflight because they are warlike. They developed rockets to deliver nuclear weapons to their enemies. They created satellites to spy on each other. They built space stations to gain military advantages. Everything they do serves the art of war." The old Watcher moved to the center of the chamber. "I have observed species that could destroy planets with their minds. I have watched civilizations that could reshape matter itself. But I have never encountered a species that fights not just to live, but to prove they deserve to live." Zethkar's confidence was beginning to waver, but his pride would not let him back down. "Even if what you say is true, they are still primitives. Our ships can destroy their entire world from orbit. Our psychic warriors can control their minds. What could they possibly do against the Vorac Empire?" "That Yilta said quietly, is exactly the kind of thinking that will get you killed. The keeper gestured again, and new images filled the hologram. Humans working in factories building weapons, humans in laboratories splitting atoms, humans in training facilities preparing for war. They do not think like we do, he continued. When we face a superior enemy, we seek to negotiate or surrender. When they face a superior enemy, they find a way to make themselves more dangerous than their opponent. They will turn every resource on their planet into a weapon. They will sacrifice their own lives without hesitation if it means victory. The chamber fell silent. Several of the younger elders shifted uncomfortably in their floating chairs. I have one final warning, Yilta said, his ancient voice carrying the weight of millennia. If you attack these humans, you will not be fighting a primitive species defending their home. You will be fighting a species that has spent their entire evolutionary history learning how to kill things that are bigger, stronger, and more dangerous than they are. Zethkar straightened his metallic carapace. The Vorthak Empire has conquered 17 systems, Keeper. We have defeated species far more advanced than these humans. Your warnings are noted but dismissed. The old watcher bowed his head. Then I have done my duty. The warning has been given. He turned to address the full council. Let it be recorded in the official archives that the species known as humans were placed under observation and deemed extremely dangerous. All Confederation members are advised to avoid contact with Earth's region. Several elders voted to approve the warning, but Zethkar requested that his dissent be noted in the official record. As the council session ended and the various ambassadors began to leave, Yiltes remained behind. He stared at the image of Earth floating in the hologram. Such a small blue world, so peaceful looking from a distance, but the Keeper knew better. He had watched this species for thousands of years. He had seen them climb from caves to nuclear weapons in the blink of an evolutionary eye. They will not listen, he whispered to himself. Pride always comes before the fall. In his private quarters later that cycle, Zethkar composed his report to Supramarch Kulveth. He described the council session and the Keeper's warnings, but his tone was dismissive. The ancient Watcher species grows senile in their old age, he wrote. They see threats where none exist. These humans are nothing more than clever animals with crude technology. When the time comes to claim their system, they will surrender as all primitives do when faced with true power. He sealed the message and sent it toward Vorthak space. Within days, the war fleets would begin preparing for expansion into the outer spiral arm. The third planet of the Yellow Star system would be their first conquest. Zethkar had no way of knowing that his message had been intercepted by human monitoring stations. Deep in an underground facility on Earth, technicians were already working to decode the alien transmission. The warning had been given. It had been ignored. The price of that arrogance would soon become clear to all. The Vorthak War fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system, like predators emerging from the depths of space. 12 massive ships hung in the void, their dark hulls bristling with weapons that could crack planets. At their center, the dreadnought Eternal Dominion stretched for 3 kilometers of armored death. War Master Kexthul stood on the command bridge, his forearms crossed behind his back as he studied the tactical displays. His psychic implants hummed with power, connecting him directly to the ship's battle computers. This would be simple. Another primitive world to add to the Vorthak Empire's growing collection. Scan results. Navigation officer, he commanded. The third planet shows signs of a developing civilization, War Master, came the reply. Chemical propulsion technology, primitive nuclear weapons, several orbital installations of limited military value. Kexthul's mandibles clicked with amusement. And their population? Approximately 8 billion individuals. Multiple nation-states locked in various territorial disputes. No unified planetary government. They appear to be barely beyond the stone-throwing stage of development. Perfect. The War Master had been hoping for easy prey. His career needed a successful conquest to secure his promotion to the Supreme Command. These humans would provide exactly what he required. But as the fleet moved deeper into the solar system, something unexpected began happening. The primitive monitoring stations orbiting the human world suddenly burst to life with activity. Radio signals flooded the electromagnetic spectrum. War Master, the communications officer reported, we are receiving multiple transmissions from the planet. They appear to be attempting communication. Put it through the translation matrix. The bridge speakers crackled to life with dozens of different voices speaking in various human languages. The translation system worked frantically to convert the alien sounds into something the Vorac could understand. Greetings to the visitors from beyond our world. We are the human race of the planet Earth. We come in peace and seek knowledge of the stars. This is the International Space Coalition. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions. We welcome you with open arms and hope for friendship between our peoples. Kexthul listened to the babbling voices with growing disgust. Typical primitive behavior. They were trying to negotiate before they even understood their situation. More signals poured in. Mathematical concepts proving the humans understood basic science. Music and art transmissions showing their cultural development. Even crude star maps indicating they knew their place in the galaxy. War Master, the sensor officer called out. The humans are mobilizing their military forces. Every warship on their planet is moving to combat positions. How many vessels do they possess? Difficult to determine exact numbers. Their fleets are scattered across multiple water-covered regions of their planet. Estimate several thousand primitive craft using chemical propulsion and crude explosive weapons. Kexthul's laugh echoed through the bridge. Several thousand primitive boats against 12 state-of-the-art Vorac warships. This would be over before it began. Open a channel to the human. Leadership, he ordered. The main screen lit up with the image of a human female sitting at a large table surrounded by other members of her species. She appeared calm, but the War Master's psychic implants detected elevated stress levels throughout the room. I am Secretary General Maria Santos of the United Nations, the human said. On behalf of all humanity, I welcome you to our solar system. We hope this marks the beginning of peaceful relations between our civilizations. Kexthul stepped forward, allowing his full height and four-armed form to dominate the screen. I am War Master Kexthul of the Vorac Empire. Your world has been selected for incorporation into our territory. You will surrender all military assets and prepare your population for relocation. The human leader's face remained surprisingly steady. I'm afraid that's not possible. Earth is our home and we don't intend to leave it. Then you will be removed by force. The connection ended. On the tactical display, Kexthul could see the humans scrambling to organize some kind of defense. Their space stations were being evacuated. Their crude satellites were changing orbit patterns. It was almost sad to watch. War Master, the weapons officer reported. Shall we begin orbital bombardment? Not yet. First we make an example. Target their largest orbital installation and destroy it. Let them see what happens to those who defy the Vorac Empire. The Eternal Dominion's main particle cannon began charging. The weapon could punch through a moon's crust with ease. The human space station would simply cease to exist. Target locked. Firing. A beam of pure energy lanced out from the dreadnought. It struck the space station and vaporized it instantly. Debris spread in all directions as the installation simply disappeared from existence. Kexthul expected immediate surrender. Instead, something else began happening on the tactical displays. Every military installation on Earth went to maximum alert. Nuclear missiles emerged from hidden silos. Submarines surfaced from the depths of the human oceans. Aircraft carriers turned toward the orbital battle zone. But strangest of all, the radio chatter from the planet below changed tone completely. This is Admiral Chen of the Pacific Defense Fleet. You have fired upon peaceful beings. You have 36 hours to leave our system, or we will consider your presence an act of war. The message was repeated in dozens of languages and broadcast on every frequency the humans possessed. There was no fear in the transmission. No pleading for mercy, just a simple statement of fact. Kexthul's psychic officers suddenly began reporting something that made him pause. War Master, we're detecting unusual brain patterns from the planet below. Explain. The humans are not exhibiting fear responses. Instead, we're reading massive spikes in aggression and determination. It's unlike anything in our psychological databases. The War Master studied the sensor readings. 8 billion minds all focused on a single purpose, all burning with the same cold fury that came from watching their home being attacked. Curious, he mused, but irrelevant. Primitive minds cannot overcome advanced technology. He was about to order a full assault when his tactical officer called out a warning. War Master! Multiple objects launching from the planet's surface. On the main screen, hundreds of bright trails rose from Earth. Chemical rockets, but moving faster than anything the Vorac had expected from such primitive technology. Those aren't rockets, the sensor officer said with confusion in his voice. Those are ballistic missiles. Nuclear-tipped ballistic missiles. They've been modified with ion drive systems. Kexthul felt his first moment of uncertainty. How did they modify their weapons so quickly? Unknown, War Master. But the modifications are crude yet effective. They're using their existing nuclear arsenal as space-to-space weapons. The modified missiles reached the Vorthak fleet within minutes. Most were destroyed by point defense systems, but several got through. Nuclear explosions bloomed against the shields of the outer escort ships. Damage report. Minimal damage to outer hull. Shields holding at 87%. But War Master, if they can adapt this quickly. Kexthul silenced his officer with a gesture. This was just desperate flailing from a dying species. But as he watched the tactical display, more launches were detected from Earth. This time, the objects were different. Larger. Moving on ballistic trajectories toward the fleet. What are those? He demanded. Unknown objects, War Master. They appear to be debris, scrap metal, some kind of improvised kinetic weapons. The truth dawned on the bridge crew as the objects got closer. The humans were throwing everything they had at the invaders. Decommissioned satellites, space station modules, even what looked like converted garbage haulers, loaded with metal debris. They're using their orbital infrastructure as ammunition. The weapons, officer said with something approaching admiration. One of the improvised kinetic weapons struck a Vorthak escort ship. The impact sent vibrations through the fleet formation. Still minimal damage, the tactical officer reported, but their ingenuity is unexpected. Kexthul gripped the command rail with all four hands. This was supposed to be a simple conquest. These humans were supposed to surrender after seeing superior firepower. Instead, they were fighting back with everything they had, and according to his psychic officers, they were enjoying every moment of it. War Master, came another report. We're receiving a new transmission from the planet. Put it through, this time. The voice belonged to a human male with graying hair and cold eyes. This is General Harrison of the Global Defense Initiative. You destroyed a space station with 400 people on board. You want a war? You've got one. The transmission ended. On the sensor displays, every military installation on Earth was now active and turning weapons toward space. Kexthul realized that Keeper Yilthes might have been right about one thing. These humans were definitely not typical primitives. The humans didn't wait 36 hours. They attacked in 18. War Master Kexthul was reviewing battle plans when alarms screamed throughout the Eternal Dominion. His bridge officers scrambled to their stations as tactical displays lit up with hundreds of incoming contacts. Report, he barked. Multiple launches from the planet's surface, War Master. They're coming from everywhere. The main screen showed Earth bristling with activity. Missile trails rose from every continent like deadly flowers blooming toward space. But these weren't the crude nuclear weapons from the first assault. These were different. Analysis, Kexthul demanded. Unknown weapon types, War Master. They appear to be improvised. Some kind of kinetic penetrators using railgun technology. Others are energy weapons mounted on chemical rocket boosters. The tactical officer's voice carried a note of disbelief. Sir, they appear to have weaponized their entire orbital defense network. Those aren't military satellites anymore. They're weapons platforms. Kexthul studied the sensor readings. In less than 18 hours, these primitive humans had converted their peaceful space infrastructure into an arsenal. Observatory telescopes had become targeting systems. Communication satellites had become guidance networks. Even their weather monitoring stations were now coordinating attacks. Impossible. No species can adapt that quickly. But the evidence was screaming toward his fleet at tremendous velocity. The first wave of improvised weapons struck the Vorthak formation. Most were absorbed by energy shields, but the impact sent vibrations through the massive warships. The humans were learning, adapting their targeting with each salvo. Shields at 60% and dropping, reported the defense officer. How are they penetrating our defenses? They're not trying to overpower them, War Master. They're studying them. Each attack is slightly different, testing our shield frequencies and response times. Kexthul felt a chill run through his exoskeleton. These humans were treating the battle like a learning exercise. The second wave arrived 30 minutes later. This time, the weapons were more sophisticated. The humans had somehow analyzed the debris from their first attacks and modified their remaining arsenal accordingly. War Master, the communications officer called out in panic. We're receiving a transmission from one of their attack craft. Show me. The screen displayed the interior of a primitive human spacecraft. A female in a military uniform sat at crude controls, her face illuminated by warning lights. Behind her, other humans worked frantically at computer terminals. "This is Commander Sarah Chen of the Terra Defense Corps," she said with calm professionalism. "We've analyzed your shield technology and identified 17 critical vulnerabilities. Surrender now or we'll exploit all of them." Kexthul laughed, but the sound came out strained. "You threaten us with your primitive weapons?" The human woman smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "Our weapons were primitive 18 hours ago. They're not primitive anymore." The transmission ended. Moments later, a new type of attack began. Instead of trying to overwhelm the Vorac shields, these weapons seemed to slip through them entirely. "Shield analysis," Kexthul roared. "They're using modulated energy frequencies, War Master. They've somehow matched our shield harmonics." The defense officer's voice cracked with stress. "Sir, they're not just copying our technology. They're improving it." Explosions began rocking the outer escort ships. The humans had gone from bouncing harmlessly off Vorac shields to punching through them like they didn't exist. But the real shock came when the boarding pods launched. "War Master, multiple small craft approaching at high speed." "They appear to be landing on our hulls." Kexthul stared at the tactical display in disbelief. "They're trying to board our ships? With what, their primitive spacesuits?" The answer came quickly. Internal sensors throughout the fleet began reporting hull breaches. Somehow the humans were cutting through Vorac armor using improvised tools and captured energy weapons. "Security teams to all breach points," Kexthul ordered. "Repel boarders." The first reports from the security teams were confident. Vorac warriors were superior fighters, enhanced with psychic abilities and advanced weaponry. A few primitive humans with crude equipment wouldn't stand a chance. The second reports were confused. The third reports were panicked. "War Master, the humans they're not fighting like any species we've encountered." "Explain." "They don't use formation tactics or advanced strategy. They just attack with anything they can find. One human disabled 3 of our warriors using nothing but a piece of metal pipe and what appears to be kitchen chemicals." More reports flooded in. Humans were running through Vorac corridors, fighting with tools, improvised weapons, and a vicious creativity that overwhelmed their technologically superior opponents. "They're boarding the Crimson Fang, War Master. The security team reports that one human female has taken control of the entire weapons deck using cooking utensils and spare wire." Kexthul's mandibles clicked rapidly with stress. This was impossible. Humans were supposed to be weak, frightened primitives who would surrender at the first show of force. The psychic reports made it worse. "War Master, our mind readers are having difficulty with the human boarders." "Why?" "Their thoughts are chaotic. Instead of fear or desperation, we're reading excitement, joy. They appear to be having fun." The tactical display showed more human attack craft approaching. But these weren't the crude chemical rockets from the beginning of the battle. Somehow, in the middle of combat, the humans had built new ships using a combination of their own technology and salvaged Vorac systems. "How long have we been fighting?" Kexthul asked. 14 hours, War Master." In 14 hours, these humans had gone from primitive chemical weapons to energy-based spacecraft that could match Vorac technology. They were learning and adapting in real time, turning every destroyed piece of equipment into a lesson for building something better. The comm system crackled to life with another human transmission. "War Master Kexthul, this is Admiral Chen of the Solar Defense Fleet." The screen showed the same human woman, but now she was aboard what looked like a Vorac bridge. Behind her, human technicians worked at alien control stations. "I thought you might like to know that we've captured one of your escort ships," she continued conversationally. "Your crew is unharmed, by the way. We're not monsters, but we are very interested in your technology." Kexthul's voice came out as a growl. "How did you take a Vorac warship?" "Your people fight like they're used to winning through superior technology," Admiral Chen replied. "But when that advantage is removed, they don't adapt well to desperate creative violence. We do. We've been practicing it for our entire evolutionary history." She gestured to something off-screen. "We've also been analyzing your fleet communications. Did you know your tactical frequencies are completely unencrypted? We've been listening to your strategy since the battle began." The human woman leaned forward. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to order your remaining ships to stand down and prepare to be boarded. Your crews will be treated well, but your ships and technology now belong to the human race. Never, Kexthul roared. The Vorthak Empire does not surrender to primitives. Admiral Chen's smile returned. That's unfortunate. We really hoped you'd be reasonable. The transmission ended. Within minutes, every remaining Vorthak ship came under coordinated attack. The humans had learned the fleet's communication codes, tactical formations, and weapon systems. They struck with precision that would have impressed a Vorthak admiral. But worse than the tactical efficiency was the psychological warfare. The humans had begun broadcasting on Vorthak frequencies, playing recordings of their own warriors laughing and joking while they fought. The sound of creatures actually enjoying mortal combat was deeply disturbing to the Vorthak psyche. War Master, the defense officer called out. The Eternal Dominion's shields are at critical levels. We're being targeted by 17 different weapon types simultaneously. Kexthul gripped his command station as explosions rocked the massive dreadnought. Through the viewports, he could see human attack craft swarming around his fleet like angry insects. Many of them appeared to be converted civilian vessels fitted with weapons that shouldn't have been able to penetrate military-grade armor. A new alarm sounded. Hull breach on Deck 7. Human boarders have accessed the ship. The War Master made a decision that went against every principle of Vorthak military doctrine. All ships prepare for emergency jump to hyperspace. We're retreating, sir. We're abandoning the mission. We're not retreating from a mission, Kexthul said grimly. We're fleeing from a nightmare. As the surviving Vorthak ships prepared their hyperspace drives, a final human transmission reached the fleet. Next time, Admiral Chen's voice said calmly, listen when the old ones warn you about dangerous species. Safe travels, War Master. Try not to come back. The last thing Kexthul saw before entering hyperspace was a human fighter pilot waving at his retreating fleet. The gesture was unmistakably mocking. 8 Vorthak ships limped away from Earth's solar system. 4 had been completely destroyed or captured. The mighty Eternal Dominion bore scars from weapons that shouldn't have been able to scratch its armor. And somewhere behind them, the humans were already studying their captured technology. 3 days after the Vorthak retreat, Admiral Sarah Chen stood in what had once been the bridge of the captured Vorthak escort ship, Crimson Fang. Human technicians crawled through every compartment, taking apart alien technology with the enthusiasm of children exploring a new toy. Status report, Dr. Martinez, she called to the chief scientist who was hunched over a Vorthak computer terminal. It's incredible, Admiral, Dr. Martinez replied without looking up from his work. Their technology is advanced, but it's not magic. Everything follows understandable physics. We're already reverse engineering their shield generators and FTL drive systems. Chen nodded as she walked through the ship's corridors. The Vorthak had built their vessels for efficiency and intimidation. Everything was dark metal and sharp angles designed to inspire fear. The humans had already begun modifying it, adding brighter lights and warning signs in multiple Earth languages. How long until we can build our own ships using their technology? She asked. At our current pace? Maybe 6 months for a prototype. The real challenge isn't understanding how their systems work. It's adapting them to human manufacturing capabilities and design preferences. Chen paused at a viewport that showed Earth hanging in the distance. The planet looked peaceful, but she knew that every military installation on the surface was working at maximum capacity. Humanity had tasted the vastness of space and learned they weren't alone. They would never be content to stay trapped on one world again. Her comm unit beeped with an incoming transmission from Earth. Admiral, this is General Harrison. We need to discuss the bigger picture. The screen showed the old soldier sitting in the underground command center that had coordinated Earth's defense. Behind him, massive displays showed intelligence gathered from captured Vorthak equipment. What's the situation, General? We've been analyzing the data from their computer systems. Admiral, there's an entire galaxy full of civilizations out there. Hundreds of species, thousands of worlds. And according to their records, humanity isn't even considered a threat. Chen felt a cold smile cross her face. Not considered a threat? After what we just did to their invasion fleet? That's the interesting part. The Vorthak Empire is apparently just one member of something called the Galactic Confederation. And there's evidence that at least one species tried to warn them about us. The general gestured to data scrolling across his screens. Species called the Watchers. Their representative specifically advised against attacking Earth, said we were dangerous. Smart species, these Watchers. Yes, but here's the thing. The Vorthak ignored the warning because they thought we were primitives, which means the rest of the galaxy probably thinks the same thing. Chen understood immediately. They're going to keep underestimating us. Exactly. And that gives us an advantage we need to exploit quickly. Admiral, I'm authorizing Operation Prometheus. Chen had helped plan Operation Prometheus during the darkest hours of the invasion, when it looked like Earth might fall. It was humanity's contingency plan for taking the war to the enemy's home territory. You want us to go hunting? The Vorthak fleet that attacked us came from somewhere. They have a home world, military bases, industrial centers, and now we have the technology to reach them. Chen looked around the captured alien ship. In just 3 days, her crew had not only learned how to operate Vorthak technology, but had begun improving on it. Human engineers were installing Earth-built weapons alongside alien systems. Computer specialists were rewriting alien software to interface with human networks. General, with respect, maybe we should focus on defense first. Build up our own fleet before we start picking fights. Admiral, we intercepted Vorthak communications before they retreated. They're reporting back to their superiors. Word is going to spread that Earth fought off their invasion. We have maybe months before someone decides we're dangerous enough to send a larger fleet. The implications sank in. Humanity's victory had painted a target on their world. The galaxy would eventually realize that these primitive humans were anything but harmless. How many ships can we build using their technology? Dr. Patel's team thinks they can have 12 hybrid vessels ready in 8 weeks. Human hulls and life support systems, Vorthak weapons and drives. Not as advanced as pure Vorthak ships, but faster and more aggressive than anything they'll expect. Chen made her decision. Do it. But General, I want something else too. Name it. I want volunteers for deep space reconnaissance. Small teams using captured Vorthak ships to gather intelligence on their military installations. We need to know what we're facing before we commit to a full offensive. Approved. Pick your teams. The transmission ended. Chen turned to address the human crew working throughout the alien ship. Listen up, people. We've just been given official authorization to take this fight to the enemy. I need volunteers for what might be a one-way trip into hostile alien territory. Every hand in the compartment went up immediately. 2 weeks later, the modified Vorthak ship Ghost Runner dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Cathara system. According to captured navigation data, this was the location of a major Vorthak military installation. Commander Lisa Park sat in the pilot's seat, her hands steady on controls that had been designed for four-armed aliens. The ship's sensors had been upgraded with human-built components that could penetrate Vorthak stealth technology. What do you see, Jackson? She asked her sensor operator. 12 ships in orbit around the second planet, Commander. Looks like a supply depot and repair facility. No sign they've detected us yet. The Ghost Runner was running silent, using human-developed stealth modifications that the Vorthak hadn't seen before. Park's team had spent 3 days studying this system, cataloging defenses and recording communications. Any word from the home fleet? Last transmission was 2 days ago. Admiral Chen reports that the hybrid warships are ahead of schedule. The first one should be ready for space trials within a week. Park nodded. Earth was building its first true starships using a combination of human ingenuity and alien technology, but they needed more intelligence about potential targets. Jackson, I'm reading something strange on the long-range sensors. Check Sector 7. Her sensor operator worked at his console, frowning. Commander, I'm showing a massive energy signature about 6 light hours out. Could be a space station or... Wait. His face went pale. Commander, that's not a space station. That's a ship. A really, really big ship. The main screen displayed a sensor image of what could only be a Vorthak dreadnought. But this one was 3 times the size of the Eternal Dominion. New contact, Jackson continued. Actually, multiple contacts. Commander, there's an entire battle fleet out there. I count over 40 ships. Park felt ice in her stomach. Are they headed for Earth? Negative. They appear to be on a patrol route along the outer system boundaries. But Commander, if this is typical Vorthak fleet strength, the implications were clear. The force that had attacked Earth was just a scouting expedition. The real Vorthak military was vastly larger and more powerful than anything humanity had faced. Get me a full tactical analysis of that fleet, Park ordered. Weapon types, shield configurations, communication frequencies, everything. For 6 hours, the Ghost Runner observed the alien fleet from long range. Jackson's sensors recorded every detail of their formation, their patrol patterns, and their technology. Finally, Park made the decision to return to Earth. We've got what we came for. Set course for Sol system. Maximum speed. As the Ghost Runner entered hyperspace, Park reviewed the intelligence they'd gathered. The Vorac Empire was vast, powerful, and had hundreds of ships available for military operations. But they'd also learned something else from monitoring alien communications. The Vorac were confused and embarrassed by their defeat at Earth. They were telling their superiors that the humans had used some kind of unknown superweapon. They still didn't understand that humanity's greatest weapon was simply the refusal to give up. When the Ghost Runner reached Earth, Park delivered her report to Admiral Chen and the Global Defense Council. The news was sobering but not discouraging. So they have hundreds of ships, General Harrison mused after reviewing the intelligence. That just means we need to be smarter, faster, and more ruthless than they expect. Admiral Chen looked at the tactical projections. How long do we have? Based on their patrol routes and communication delays, I'd estimate 6 to 8 months before they can organize a proper invasion fleet. Then we have 6 months to show them why you don't pick a fight with humanity, Chen said grimly. Time to turn Earth into the most dangerous system in the galaxy. Outside the command center windows, construction crews worked around the clock, building new ships, weapons, and defensive installations. The human race was preparing for a war unlike anything they'd ever faced. But they were no longer the primitive species that had been attacked 3 weeks ago. They were something new, something dangerous, something the galaxy had never encountered before. They were humans with starships, and they were very, very angry. 6 months after the failed invasion of Earth, Supermarch Kolveth of the Vorac Empire sat in his command throne aboard the fortress ship Dominion of Stars. Before him, holographic displays showed the humiliating reports from War Master Kexthul's expedition. Explain to me again, Kolveth said in a voice like grinding metal, how a primitive species with chemical rockets managed to destroy 4 of our warships. Kexthul stood at attention, his once proud bearing now hunched with shame. Supermarch, the humans are not what our initial scans indicated. They adapt to new technology at an unprecedented rate. They turned our own weapons against us. Adapt? Kolveth's mandibles clicked with anger. You were defeated by primitives who learned our technology in a matter of hours? Yes, Supremarch. The massive alien leader rose from his throne. Around him, the bridge of the Dominion of Stars hummed with the power of 100 civilizations' worth of conquered technology. This ship alone could destroy most planets. Then we will not make the same mistake twice. Prepare the Grand Fleet. We will reduce their entire system to ash. But before Kexthul could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the massive ship. Supremarch, the communications officer called out. We're receiving a transmission from the outer sensor network. Multiple unknown ships have entered Vorac space. Show me. The main display lit up with images from border monitoring stations. 12 ships moved through space in a formation that was both alien and familiar. The hulls were clearly human in design, but they moved with the speed and grace of Vorac technology. Are those? Kolveth began. Human ships, Supremarch, using hybrid technology. They appear to have combined their own designs with our captured systems. Kexthul stared at the display in shock. Impossible. It took our engineers decades to perfect hyperspace travel. These humans have been in space for less than a standard year. The lead human ship began broadcasting on all frequencies. This is Admiral Sarah. Chen of the Terran Defense Fleet, we are here to discuss terms for the immediate cessation of hostilities between our species. Kolveth laughed, a sound like breaking crystal. Terms? They come to demand terms from the Vorac Empire? Put me through to their ship, he commanded. The screen shifted to show the interior of the human command vessel. Admiral Chen sat in a chair that looked primitive compared to Vorac technology, but her expression was anything but primitive. Behind her, human crew members worked at stations that combined Earth computers with alien control systems. I am Supremarch Kolveth, he announced. You will surrender your ships immediately or be destroyed. Admiral Chen smiled. It was not a friendly expression. Supremarch, I think you misunderstood the nature of this meeting. We're not here to surrender. We're here to prevent you from making a very serious mistake. She gestured to something off-screen. While you've been planning your grand revenge against Earth, we've been busy. Our reconnaissance teams have visited 17 Vorac systems. We've identified your major military installations, your supply routes, and your industrial centers. The display behind Chen lit up with detailed intelligence reports. Star maps showing Vorac fleet positions, technical specifications of their weapon systems, even architectural plans of government buildings on the Vorac homeworld. How did you? Kolveth whispered. Your security is designed to keep out advanced civilizations that follow civilized rules of warfare, Chen continued. Unfortunately for you, we're not civilized. We're humans. We cheat. More data scrolled across Chen's displays. Communication intercepts, troop movement schedules, personal files on Vorac military leaders. Here's what's going to happen, Chen said calmly. You're going to officially recognize Earth as an independent system and agree to a non-aggression pact. In exchange, we won't implement our current battle plans. Battle plans? Kolveth roared. You threatened the entire Vorac Empire with 12 primitive ships? Chen's smile widened. Oh, Supreme Arch. These 12 ships aren't our invasion fleet. They're our negotiation team. She touched a control on her armrest. Computer, show the Supreme Arch what we've been building. The display changed to show Earth's solar system. But it no longer looked like the primitive system the Vorac had first attacked. Massive orbital shipyards stretched between the planets. Hundreds of ships moved in formation around Earth. The asteroid belt had been converted into a weapons manufacturing center. In 6 months, we've built 237 warships, Chen continued conversationally. Each one uses the best combination of human and Vorac technology. Each one is crewed by people who remember what you did to our space station. Kolveth stared at the images in disbelief. Impossible. No species can industrialize that quickly. No civilized species, Chen corrected. But humans aren't civilized. We're what happens when evolution spends 4 billion years teaching a species how to kill things that are bigger and stronger than they are. The Admiral leaned forward in her primitive chair. Supreme Arch, your people made 2 mistakes. First, you attacked our home. Second, you taught us that there was a galaxy full of civilizations out here. We're very grateful for that education. You cannot threaten the Vorac Empire. We're not threatening you. We're offering you a choice, peace or the kind of war that ends civilizations. Kolveth was about to respond when another alarm sounded. His tactical officer called out in panic. Supreme Arch. Long-range sensors are detecting massive fleet movements throughout human space. Hundreds of ships are moving toward our borders. Chen nodded. That would be Admiral Harrison's 3rd Fleet taking position along your trade routes, and Admiral Petrov's 2nd Fleet, moving to surround your colony worlds. Nothing hostile, you understand? Just making sure everyone stays calm during our negotiations. The Supreme Arch felt something he'd never experienced in his centuries of conquest. Fear. What do you want? He asked quietly. Recognition of Earth's sovereignty, a formal non-aggression pact, and reparations for the families of the 400 people you killed when you destroyed our space station. And if we refuse? Chen's expression didn't change, but something cold entered her eyes. Then you'll learn why Keeper Yilthus warned you to stay away from our region. For several long moments, the bridge of the Dominion of Stars was silent. Finally, Kolveth spoke. What? What are your terms? 3 days later, on the crystal spires of Nexus Prime, the Galactic Confederation Council watched in stunned silence as the newest member species presented their credentials. Ambassador Sarah Chen, representing the Terran Federation, stood where Zethkar had once dismissed warnings about her people. Behind her, a full human diplomatic staff worked with quiet efficiency. Honored elders, Chen began. Humanity is pleased to join the Galactic Confederation as an equal member. We look forward to peaceful cooperation with all civilized species. In the shadows at the edge of the chamber, ancient Keeper Yilthus watched with all 12 of his eyes. The old Watcher had lived long enough to see many species rise and fall, but he had never seen anything quite like this. The humans had gone from primitive chemical rockets to interstellar civilization in less than 1 standard year. They had defeated the Vorac Empire not through superior technology, but through sheer stubborn determination to win at any cost. Elder Vrixnal of the Centauran Republic spoke carefully. Ambassador Chen, we welcome humanity to the Confederation, but we must ask, What are your intentions regarding expansion and territorial claims? Chen smiled, and several council members shifted uncomfortably. They had all heard the stories of what happened when humans smiled like that. We have no intention of conquering anyone, she said. We simply want to explore, trade, and learn from our galactic neighbors. Of course, if anyone decides to attack human territory or threaten human citizens, they'll discover that we're very protective of our friends and family. The message was clear. Humanity would play by the rules as long as everyone else did the same, but anyone who chose to break those rules would face consequences that would make the Vorac defeat look gentle by comparison. Ambassador Zethkar, his career and reputation destroyed by his failure, sat in the observers section watching the human delegation. These were the primitive bipedal mammals he had once dismissed. Now they commanded respect from species that had conquered star systems before humans had discovered fire. After the session ended, Chen approached the ancient keeper. Yilthes, she said respectfully, I wanted to thank you for trying to warn the Vorac about us. The old watcher studied her with his dozen eyes. You are not what I expected, Ambassador. How so? I warned them that your species was dangerous, but I did not expect you to be so diplomatic. Chen's smile returned. Oh, we can be very diplomatic. It's amazing how reasonable people become when they know you're capable of turning their homeworld into an asteroid field. Yilthus made a sound that might have been laughter. Indeed. Tell me, Ambassador, what are humanity's long-term goals? Same as everyone else's, I imagine. We want our people to be safe, prosperous, and free to explore the galaxy. The difference is we're willing to fight anyone who tries to stop us. As the human delegation prepared to leave Nexus Prime, new warning beacons were being installed throughout the galaxy. But these carried a different message than the old ones. Attention all vessels. You are approaching human space.